Hey, Boaz here with Next Pittsburgh. I'm here in Donora. We're about an hour south of Pittsburgh, and this is a special Yinzer Backstage Pass. So a few weeks ago, I started listening to this podcast called Cement City, which is all about Donora. I'm obsessed with it. It's all about what's happening currently in Donora. It talks about the history of Donora a little bit. So I thought, well, let's hang out with the creators of the podcast, and here they are, Jeanne, Marie, and Erin. So we're sort of going behind the scenes of the podcast. We're sort of going behind the scenes of Donora. We'll figure it out as we go.
Donora, PA. Let's see. The town started back in the early 1900s. It was settled because of the steel mill. When it was complete, ran 2 miles from one end of town to the other. Probably the most noteworthy thing that happened after that was what's known as the Donora Smog Disaster. That was in 1948 when a weather event trapped the fumes from the zinc plant into the town. It just stayed there for a number of days, and initially 20 some people died right away, but then hundreds more over a period of time.
And that was the first time something like that had happened.
Well, it was the first time that people paid attention to something like that happening. And it really was it was an event that got, coverage around the world. And one of the final, great things that came out of it was the Clean Air Act.
And we're just a couple feet from the Donora Smog Museum.
Yeah, so it is open, I think, on Saturdays from 11 to 3 or by appointment. So the local historical society runs it. A big part of it is related to the smog disaster, but it's also just kind of this amazing archive of all of the treasures of the town's history. There's a whole section on hometown sports heroes. Stan Musial is from Donora, and Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey.
There are a few businesses here. A lot of things are closed up. And then there's some that feel like someone just picked up and left yesterday or 20 years ago, and no one's been in there since.
That was something that really, when we first got to town, was very striking to us, was just the sort of time capsule feeling of some of these stores. And like this one here called the Boston store was one of the first places that we kind of came in and looked in the window when we were trying to figure out, what was this place even about.
If you look at that display, that looks like it was just like that probably 30 years ago. Yeah. And it just, I don't know, it's still there.
This is House of Nutrition. One of the first places we walked into was House of Nutrition, and we met Anita, who had been working there for a long time. It used to be her dad's tailoring business before she took it over as a health food store.
She told us her whole backstory, which was just a beautiful story because she had once been an opera singer starting in high school.
People aren't often visiting Donora, and so I think people were really delighted to have someone come and say, tell me your story, because no one's doing that here.
Well, they also didn't know what to do with us. I think why are you here and why Donora was a question we were getting a lot, and it was very hard to explain. We were curious, and we wanted to see what it was like to live in a small town and to be, part of this kind of community. So we came to Donora kind of on a whim at first, back in early 2017, a long time ago now. It was a moment when a lot was going on in the country. We had a new president. There was a lot of people were interested in Rust Belt America, and so we got the idea that what if we picked a town, thinking about the Mon Valley in particular, given that it's a place that is so close yet so far in many ways, and people from Pittsburgh don't really get out here that much. And so
you essentially embedded yourselves in Donora for 3-ish years?
Yeah, I think, well, when we originally had the idea, we were like, let's stay for a year. It's going to be so ambitious, and let's do that. It'll be big. And then we had, 3 years later, we were still here. We couldn't stop it. It was.
You're hooked on Donora.
Yes.
And now you're going to lead us up the hill, and you've got another stop for us on our tour of Donora.
Yes, you can't come to Donora and not visit Cement City.
And so these houses might look normal, but there's something unique about them.
They are 100% concrete.
Wow. And so how did this come to be here in Donora?
The big surprise for us was learning that the person who was the technical advisor on these homes was none other than Thomas Edison. He had a big concrete factory, and he was making everything from concrete furniture to concrete pianos to concrete houses. And so he put this neighborhood up here in Donora at a time when the town was just starting to really boom, right, and they needed affordable housing for the management.
And so you actually moved into a house here in Cement City while you were making the podcast.
We did. We became really enamored of Cement City in particular, but really all of Donora. This is a one neighborhood within the whole town.
And we see a guy hanging out on this porch over there, so we're going to walk over and see if he'll show us inside one of the concrete houses. Wait, can you tell me your name, first of all?
John Carson,
John Carson. And how long have you lived in Cement City?
1943.
1943. So how old were the houses at that point?
They were built around 1920.
What was this neighborhood like in 1943?
43, much nicer than it is now.
Yeah.
Much nicer than it was. There were trees all along the street.
And does it look any different from the inside from a different kind of home?
Have you ever been in a house? You've been in the house?
No.
Come on in.
Okay. All this tile is original?
No, my dad put that tile up many years ago. My dad's been dead since '72, but he put the tile up. He put the tiles up there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes, this is his plate collection right now. We've added to for.
This is your dad's plate collection?
What's my dad's plate collection? Yes.
Has he been to all the places, or have you been to all the places where you have a plate from?
Some of the places I have been to, such as Hawaii, I was there I was in the service and stuff like that. And people would give it to him and stuff, give it to us and stuff like that. So.
Great. I guess once you start a collection, everybody sort of helps you out.
Yes.
If you look up here, you can see where the forms were. This is so at the Smog Museum, the Historical Society has some of the old forms that they used to pour this, and so this was all Thomas Edison design technology. So they poured the basement, and then they poured the next floor and the next floor, and it took I think 3 days between them, and the whole house is completely poured concrete. There was like cutouts for everything, kind of built into the molds, so they figured out how to like make a space for the ductwork and all of this kind of poured into the molds. But then one of the interesting things is it's just so solid, and so the thing that made it last forever is also the thing that makes it very inflexible and difficult to sort of adapt in a way. You try to get Wi-Fi, and all these things put into your house. It's kind of an interesting process.
Now you've led us to the mayor's backyard. This is Donnie, aka Piglet, the current mayor of Donora. Well, I'm curious, what did you think when these two came to town and started, asking so many questions?
Well, we were like, what the heck are they doing? And, but they were so friendly that it was like, hey, we seen them. It was like seeing somebody from across the street or downtown or something. They became part of the Donora family.
Is there something you want folks in the rest of Western Pennsylvania to know about Donora? It feels like the first thing that comes to mind is they've heard of the Donora smog. What do you want people to know about Donora now?
Donora is a very friendly town. If you listen to the podcast, the very first one, Guido Franzalio says, hey, if you break down in Donora within 5 minutes, you have a ride home. And basically that's the makeup of Donora. That's why I'm so ecstatic about the podcast. It's letting people see. It's very emotional. Yeah. And I'm hoping that this podcast makes people think,
And Jeanne, you're married to Donnie.
Yes.
And you're also the smog queen. You're also on council, so you have
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It keeps us busy.
It was sort of your idea, among others, to sort of reclaim smog maybe as something to not be ashamed of or bury anymore.
It was, yeah. I just want them to remember, what happened, the tragedy, but, out of it came the EPA. I want them to know that there's hope after, tragedies, and that hopefully maybe something good will still even better come out of what has already happened. People say, you can't go back home, but one thing I love about Donora people, they do go as little as we are, and with no banks, no grocery stores, or no gas stations, somehow they all come back home.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for shining light on Donora, and we just hope that we're doing all we can to make it better every day.